Hi everyone, Steven here. So we're back working on the Mustang. What we're going to do is tear apart the front end. Now what I've done is the front suspension. What I've done is I've actually ripped apart the upper and lower control arms, the springs, all that kind of stuff on the driver's side. What we're going to do now is concentrate on the passenger side. So I'll walk you through doing the calipers, the rotor, the upper and lower control arms, and more importantly, the coil spring, because that could be a fun one. And I got two different methods to do it, but you have to stick around to watch that. So see you in a bit. Thank you. Hi everybody, Steven here. I'm back with the Mustang. It's been a little while since I've done some videos on it. I have been working on it, so not to worry. Let's flip the camera around. So basically I've been, well, sure you folks didn't want to watch me just wire wheel this whole thing. I've been wire wheeling all inside here. The engine compartment's really dusty in here right now. Got to wash it down. That's all wire wheeled, and I sprayed it. Again, I'm still doing this area here. I've done the passenger side, which you can see over here. I still have to repair all this stuff at the top, but I'll walk you along with that when I get there. I got some more patches I got to fix. But I figured let's get all try to get all the rust off. What I've done is I basically wire wheeled. This one's still not painted, but I wire wheeled, and you can see over here even this is not painted yet. But I wire wheeled it, and then I got that crud cutter. Again, not endorsing it or whatever, but I got this stuff, sprayed it on to neutralize the rust. I'd wire wheel again, then do that again. This way you get all the pits. What I'm going to do right now in this video, as you noticed over here on the passenger side, all the suspension is gone, right? So I removed up the upper and lower control arms. Everything is gone over on this side here. This way I can get there and do some repairs and cleaning. I'm going to do the same thing here. So if you're going to take you along with the journey with me, sorry, we're going to tear this whole thing apart. For the most part, what I've done, if you look here, if I zoom in, you'll see that my strut bar, this is my strut bar right here. Let's back out. The strut bar there, that's a 1-inch bolt, or sorry, nut. You'll see it's loose. I actually loosened that up first. What I did before I do a lot of this stuff is I wire wheeled everything down, like around the bolts, and I hit penetrating oil. Did that a few times. This one here, this nut wasn't so bad. The one on the passenger side for the strut, which is removed now, I had to heat it up red hot with a torch to get it out. So if you're going to tear the whole thing apart, I would suggest starting with this bolt first, right? Or this nut on the strut, because this way it's held up over here. I actually did that last, and this bar was turning on me, so it was giving me a bit of aggravation. I got my stabilizer bar over here. All this stuff is getting replaced. New upper control arms, ball joints, everything. I'll bring you folks along with the journey. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with taking out let's get this out of the way. I'm going to take off the rotor, the brake calipers, right? So we've got a couple of bolts over here. I'll take them off, and then we'll kind of take it from there, okay, folks? Then we'll loosen up the tie rod ends. You'll see, again, there's these little cotter pins here, right? So a lot of times they're so rusty, they just break. I don't really care. I just turn the nut, and it manages to get past the pin. I'm going to be replacing tie rods, everything here. When you look up underneath here, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, the light's probably causing more problems than anything else. Let's get that off of there. Again, you look up under here, again, you see that bolt looks pretty clean. Again, I cleaned it with a wire wheel, hit it with penetrating oil. Same thing over here, again, for the strut bar. There's some, again, cotter pins here. I'll have to take those off. That one's really loose, so that's good. And that one there is good too, so it'll be easy to come off and then hit the bolts and whatnot, right? So I'm going to start with this here first, the caliper, and take it from there. Okay, see you in a bit. All right, so it's a 9/16 bolt. Let's see. Bugger. The 9/16 on the brake line here. One of the advantages of doing this is I'm documenting where the parts go as well. I did a lot of this stuff when I was a kid. A lot of it I remember. But it's always good to have it, documented somehow. So if you're ever doing this for yourself, again, it's piss and brake fluid all over the floor. But, oh well, most of the lines are all cut and stuff right now anyways. Not like a little bit of kitty litter, though. That'll help out. Once this project's done, I'll probably give this floor a really good cleaning, but then who knows, I may be on another project. So what the hell? So good old kitty litter and a coffee cup. All right. The other one must have fell on the ground, or it's still there. So this, I don't know if you can make that out. So here's a bolt here, but it's got a copper washer. You see the washer? It's got a copper washer. And it goes, one copper washer goes on that side, the other copper washer goes on the side facing the caliper. Mine might still be stuck on the caliper, or it fell on the ground and covered it in kitty litter. But you know what? I don't care. I will be replacing it, right? So, and then I could disconnect the brake lines, all getting all replaced as well. Let's see about getting this caliper out right now. I think we have to do a little bit of brute force and ignorance on this one here, folks. So stay tuned for that. The passenger side wasn't so bad. It came off okay, but it didn't look like it was seized like this. No. Like I said, I'm replacing all this. So if I'm not, there we go, it's coming off. Okay. So there we go. I have no idea what that stuff is. I don't know. Looks like silicone to me. You know, I never put it on. The other side had the same thing. Like I said, I'm replacing these. Brake pad looks pretty good, but I'll be replacing all those as well. So good caliper kit. And when I get all the parts, folks, when I get all the parts and stuff, I will walk you through it. I'm getting various stuff here, so I'm going to start ordering it next week. So let's put that down over here. Okay. Now, let's see here. I'll leave all that on. Okay, so I could take the rotor off, which I'm going to do actually. Why not? Let's take off the rotor. Side cutters. Probably should have been wearing safety glasses for that, folks. So that little cap comes off there. And there's a nut right here. Hand tight. Woohoo! And like I said, I'm going to be putting in new rotors, bearings. While I got it all apart, I may as well do it. I'd love to throw in some of that custom suspension stuff, but I honestly don't have the money right now. So I'll be putting in stuff that's aftermarket, Moog, was it Envirotech or whatever. It's a combination of stuff there. Here's the rotor. Yeah. A really weird color grease in there. Light this thing up. This doesn't look too bad. Don't know if you folks can see it. Yeah, you can. There's the other brake pad. It pops off just like that. These little clips, right? So again, a lot of times those caliper kits come with replacements. And this pad actually looks pretty darn good, to be honest with you. But I'll be replacing it. Okay. So we've got that. I'm going to now, I'm going to disconnect the 2 bolts, the stud bar. Yeah. Pull out the cotter pins. I showed you those bolts before, so let me where's my side cutters? There they are. Yeah, and probably should be using goggles when I'm doing that. But I have my squint goggles on. That's a joke. You know what? I'm gonna put on my goggles. I tell you, having a lift makes things so much nicer. Never had one. I just got this a couple years ago, and it just makes things so much easier. Unfortunately, my Mustang is taking up 100% of the usage of this thing right now. So once I get this thing so it can drive, I can start utilizing it for other stuff, not just the Mustang. Okay, so I think those are 5/8 bolts. I don't need the goggles anymore. I think those are 5/8. Oh, a little bigger than that. So probably up to 11/16. No, it's not. I used to be good look at another bolt and tell you exactly what size. It looks like it's a 3/4, but that comes with time and experience. But when I was younger, I was able to look at it and know exactly what it was. Yeah, so it's a 3/4. Feels a little sloppy for 3/4 though. So I'm gonna get a socket, 3/4 inch socket. There's one right there. Always good to have a little pipe laying around for an extension, give you lever or leverage. Gonna have to come out first. Okay. Let's disconnect the stabilizer bar. That looks like 1/2 inch on top. Yeah, she's a 1/2 inch, all right. Let's turn it underneath. I'm just keeping it together because, hey, why not? I'm getting all new ones there. Rubbers are all messed up on it anyways, right? These things aren't that expensive. Look at that, it's all cracked up. So that to the side. I'm gonna remove the tie rod now, the outer tie rod. So right there, it's got the cotter pin, crown bolt, right? Castle bolt, right? So I'm gonna loosen that, and that should free this up so it can actually turn, all right? So let me, maybe I can give you a better, actually I'll be in front of it, doesn't really matter, so. All right, so let's get rid of that cotter pin. Safety glasses. By the way, when I was banging on that strut, the end of the strut there, it's a nylon hammer, okay? So I wouldn't do that unless there was a nut on the end. Wouldn't use it with a regular hammer. It would mess up the threads. I don't know if anybody knows where you can get replacement struts for this. I haven't really done the research, but I haven't really seen anything widely available because the one on the driver's side was really bad, and it was it looked like it was stripped. Okay, so that was a 3/4 inch. Yeah, 3/4 inch. So if you're going to do this, I would suggest, again, clean as much of the threads as you can with a wire wheel. Soak it with penetrating oil. Just make your life a lot easier. Again, this car, I've had this car for over 15 years, and it's been sitting in a shed. So, like I said, I'm replacing tie rod ends, so I really don't care if I damage the thread, if I bash that tie rod end up. Now, what I'm going to do, let me show you what I'm doing here. So there's the tie rod end. I could bash on this. You shouldn't do that. You should really do it right on here, all right? Right here. Hit it on this. And if you got another piece of metal behind here, like a chunk of metal, that will loosen it up. So let's try this out. Okay, so I gotta get a piece of metal. Can't do that with one hand. So I'm just going to put this on one side, get the hammer on the other side, and then smack it. Hopefully that comes out. If not, I'm going to butcher up the tie rod belt. Nope. There. Just popped out. I didn't have to butcher the threads. Okay, so this should now. There. Stabilizer bar. Let me get the nut and put it back on. And I'll be replacing the bushings as well. I'll go, once I start putting this together, I will make a list and I will make a list of the stuff that I'm putting on and we'll take it from there. All right, let's take the stabilizer bar off. It's basically 2 half-inch nuts over here. There's the bushing. There's another one on the driver's side I never did take off, so good time to do it right now. There we go. Stabilizer bar out. I will be upgrading this, so I'm not going to need this anymore. Okay, now I'm going to do the brake line. I'll get a line wrench. Oh, shoot. Don't have a line wrench for this size. It's 7/16. Guess I'm going to have to use a regular wrench, but it'll probably mess it up. But I'm going to be replacing it, so if I have to. Yeah, I just messed it up, so I don't care. I will just cut it. I'll be putting in all new brake lines and stuff as well, so I don't care about that. I don't feel like driving around. So there's a little nut there. It looks like it's a 1/2 inch. Let's find out. So there's the brake line. Okay. I'm going to put the bolt right back here as a reminder. There's other little bolts there holding the brake line. Well, I'll worry about those later when I start cleaning up. I will be buying new ones of these. Again, this is so old, I don't trust it. That's off now. So what I got to do now is I got to take this shock out, and there's 2 bolts. There's 1 bolt up on top, and there's 2 under here. This is called a spring perch right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, so let me angle the camera up a bit more. So this is called there's your spring. There's a spring perch it sits on, and the shock actually comes through, and it sits. There's 2 bolts. And actually, I'll do this. 2 nuts, I should say. That's what the shock looks like. So there's 2 nuts here. It looks like they're 1/2 inch on both sides. I got to take out, and then I got to take out the top, which I'll show you. So I'll just use the air tool here. Are you gonna cooperate with me? I don't know if you noticed it, but it started to come down. Son of a beehive. Can't remember how I did it on the other side. I think I took the shock out first. Ooh, that wasn't good, was it? That definitely was not good. Okay, so she's bottomed out now. Yeah, so what I did on the other side, folks, again, learn from my mistake, is I actually disconnected the shock on top first, right? And I think it was on the ground when I did that. And then later on, I jacked up, took everything apart. So probably want to take the shock out first, okay? That's the safest bet and the safest way to do it, okay? And you seen how much tension that thing was under, right? So fortunately, though, right, nothing bad happened, okay? Again, these springs here, you really got to watch out for. So I'm going to have to lower the vehicle now to take the rest of it out. And once I take that out, we'll come back and talk about the coil spring, okay? Okay, everybody, I've got the staying lowered down. I got it on stands over there. So that was a real bonehead maneuver on my part. When I did the other side, while it was still on its wheel, I actually disconnected the shock. So what I got to do now, this is 9/16 is, again, this shock tower cover or whatever the hell it's called, or whatever it's called there. Again, you can see I already loosened the nuts on them. So there's only 3 of them. And that's basically it. And then you unscrew that. The whole shock will come out now. So I'll take that nut off. This little, whatever, shock tower cap or whatever you want to call it. I'll probably powder coat that. And that's generally it. Now, the next thing to do, and this is the dangerous part, is actually compressing the spring, the coil spring, right? And there's a couple ways to do that. There's actually more than a couple of ways to do that. There's some really wrong ways to do that. And there's actually a Ford tool. I'll see if I can put a link for that. But they don't really have it anymore. So I'm going to show you what I have. I've actually got 2 different tools here, and I'll talk about the differences between them. So stick around for that. Okay, one of the tools I have is this. I'm actually Canadian, so you can rent this from Canadian Tire. You can buy it, right? It's right here. It's actually under their tool loan program. It's actually a pretty slick program. I actually opted to buy this because I wasn't sure how long I'd have it. But it's pretty cool. They got a lot of tools. I go to the automotive desk at most Canadian Tires, and I actually, my whole life, never knew that Canadian Tire had a tool program. So it's really, really cool. So you've got this. This is not designed for McPherson struts. I got to put it inside the spring over here, and I'll show you. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to show you one of the things I'm a little bit nervous about. I use this tool on the driver's side, and I'm going to be honest with you, man, I was sweating bullets, right? I was really scared because this stuff here, these coil springs, are under a lot of tension, and you could mess yourself up or kill yourself if you don't do things properly, right? I'm going to put this one in. I need both hands. I'm going to install it. I'll show you one of the reasons why I'm not too fond of it, to be honest with you, right? I'm sure some of you out there have used this tool many, many times. You probably swear by it. It worked on my driver's side, but I was really, really nervous, and I'll show you why. All right, so stick around. I'll come back after I put it in. So here's that tool. It's installed, and you got the bolt here that you turn. Here's there's the fork, and you got, I guess, whatever you want to call these little things, little curves or grips on the top. We want to make sure that they're perpendicular to each other, right? So this guy's going in that direction. This guy's going in that direction. One's going this way. One's going that. Now this tool works. You just basically, you get a wrench. You get a wrench and you start cranking on it, right? Why don't I like this tool? What scares the crap out of me is you're in the line of fire right here because you're turning this bolt, right? You're in the line of fire. If something should happen to this tool, it breaks or whatever, or slips or whatever, this thing's under a ton of tension and you can die from that, right? I'm really nervous about using this particular tool. Now, some of you are going to say, hey, Steve, you got it upside down. It's supposed to be, bolt's supposed to be on top. No, it's not, because if it did, the threaded rod would come down into the perch, right? So it would work its way down into the perch, which won't work. So if you look at the instructions, it actually tells you, again, this is actually the bottom, right? So, and you crank it and you keep cranking it, right? And this thing's not under a lot of tension right now, but I keep going like this, it's going to get under tension. I'll show you something that I actually made. And there's actually a tool. It's not in Canada, it's in the States, and I figured, I can make it. So, and I'll show you that one in a second. So here's the tool I made. So there's a shock absorber, right? Front shock. And here's the tool I made that kind of replicates this shock. Again, this is, anyways, doesn't really matter. You'll see I've got an Acme thread. It's a rod with an Acme threads, like Acme and, Acme company on the Roadrunner, right? I've got a washer here. I have a thrust bearing, okay? And I have another washer and a nut. I'll probably put a second nut up there just for safety reasons. Down here, I've got some grade 8 bolts and nuts. You can see that they're really overkill on the size. I think that's a 1/2 inch, if I remember correctly, right? And that's grade 8, so they're nice and tough. Now you look at this and go, what the heck did he do there? He really butchered a lot of the stuff, right? If I actually hold this up, you'll see I really butchered a lot of it. When I made this originally, this base was about 1 inch or 2 longer on each side. I had the metal coming down on angles. It looked kind of nice, to be honest with you. Then I realized it wouldn't fit inside the shock tower. It's got to get inside that type of opening, right? So it has to kind of emulate the base of a shock. So I'm like, do I want to start from scratch? I said, I'm just going to cut all this, make it open, grind it down just to, make it look like a shock. This is all welded to the nut. So I have a nut here. There's a threaded rod going right through this bar. There's a nut here again, and I welded all this together. I welded the threaded rod also at the top. Then there's a nut down at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. So you can kind of see that nut there, right? And then I welded it all. So and then welded this plate, the bottom plate here. Let me put this down. Welded this plate here to the nut all the way around the nut. And then I had this prettier before. It was a lot wider, right? Like I said, and then I had, some nice metal coming down here so this thing doesn't flex or bend. But I had to cut it all out so it could fit inside that gap I showed you. But that's it. I'm not endorsing you to make your own tools. Do it at your own risk. There are proper tools out there. But that's it. Let me go ahead and pop it inside the vehicle, and let's see how well it works. Okay. All right. So I installed the tool here, folks. The one I rigged up. Let's back out the camera a little bit. So you see it imitates the shock, right? So it's bolted into the. I get some number 8 bolts here. It's bolted into the spring perch or seat. This is still connected down below, so I'd have to loosen the nut underneath it. I'm not going to do that quite yet. Comes up to the top just like a shock would, and then at that point I got the again the shock cover or whatever you want to call it, right? Installed. I got a washer that I put on there. I got a throw out bearing. I threw a little bit of grease on there. Another washer. And then I put the bolt on top of it, or the nut, I should say. And this is an Acme threaded rod. Pretty sure I mentioned before. I'm going to put another nut. I don't need the second one, but you know what? The way I look at it, why not? Safety, just in case this nut strips. This could catch it, whatever. And again, I'm being just paranoid. And all I do is I get my adjustable wrench here and start cranking. I don't know if you'll see that. It's actually moving. What I like about this type of system is I could be inside the engine compartment, so I could jump inside here, crank it all up. If something should happen, I am not in danger, right? It'll fly out over here. So I like this system better. The only thing that potentially could happen is maybe if something breaks and the rod goes flying straight up, right? So don't have your head over that, right? So I just crank it, take your time, that type of thing. I'm not endorsing anybody to make this stuff, but anyways, I just feel personally myself more comfortable. Plus, I don't need to crank the crap out of it. It's a lot easier to work with, and I don't need to lift the whole thing completely up. All I have to do is really take the tension off of this, and then at that point, slip these bolts out, and then the perch should slide out at that point. That's the plan. So let's see what happens. Now, before I do that, I did a couple turns there. It's under a little bit of tension. I could back it off. It's under like no tension right now. I'm going to remove the lower control arm and the spindle or whatever from the upper control arm. So I just want to have the upper control arm left there. So what I need to do for that is, if I zoom in, there's the nut for the upper control arm. There's a cotter pin. I take that out, loosen up the nut, and then I'm going to bang on this with a hammer, right? I'll bang on top of this. You generally don't hit it there, you'll damage the threads, but who cares? I'm replacing it all anyways. So you generally bang there to clean it all up. And then for the lower control arm, you know what? I'll do that in the air and show it to you. So let me take that off first and then take it from there. So. All right. That doesn't seem to want to come off, and I don't want to beat the snot out of it. So there's a plan B for me to do this. I could take the whole thing off as an assembly. I just want to keep it simpler for me. There's 3 nuts holding on this ball joint. Generally, they're riveted in. This has been replaced at some time in its life. I didn't do it, so I can loosen up the 3 nuts and take it from there. And they look like 7/16. There. So, plan B worked. Like I said, later I could take it off, put it on the vise, heat this up a bit. I'll soak it in some penetrating oil. I want to salvage this. This is getting replaced. I don't care about that. So now I need to loosen up, disconnect the lower control arm. And let me put this here. Okay, so now I need to do the lower control arm. And it's basically held on. Come on. With this bolt. This is a cam bolt. You can see it's, maybe you can't. It's got a big, like it's offset. This washer's offset. That's to allow you to adjust the camber of the wheel. I'll do a video on that when I get to there. So there's a bolt there. And then the nuts. Again, right there. You can see it. And it looks really rusty, but actually not that bad. I've actually cleaned it up. I've actually put penetrating oil and all that wonderful stuff. So you can see this is what it looks like. Okay. You can actually see the control arm lifting up. Okay. I have some tensions off of there. Probably a good idea if you're doing this kind of stuff, have somebody around with you in case something should happen. I don't, but I have my neighbors and stuff. So there we go. I got that tension off of there. Okay, I can actually see it lifted part of that perch off that spring. And it's the bolts there that kind of hold it. I want to see if I could turn that. If not, I got to crank it a bit more. No, I don't want to mess with that. Let's try a light tap from underneath maybe. Nope, don't like doing that. Okay, so let's crank her up a bit more. Nice thing about these Acme bolts, doesn't take many turns to get that thing to move. So you can see it's actually moved up quite a bit. What I am worried about, if I hit this, it may want to kick out this way or slide out this way. Let's give her a couple of taps. It is. There we go. So it just popped out. I don't know if you folks got that because my back was in front of you, but it basically just sprung out there. So I got to pop this control arm off. All right? I think it's the same size wrench. Where is it? I think it's nope. Used to be good at eyeballing the sizes of nuts and bolts. That comes with experience, I guess. In time. Okay. I'm going to stay clear away from here. I don't want that thing projectiling up. Probably should have loosened this a little bit maybe before. So right now, that spring is compressed and there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of force. So that's dangerous. So you want to try and get this part done as quickly as you can, as safely, and don't do this hungover. You want to have all your faculties and stuff. Come on. So again, I'm gonna there we go. Upper control arm is out. I'm getting this whole new piece, right? I'll probably keep these. I don't know. Maybe not. I'll have to see. All right, so let's get this thing decompressed now. Like I said, the nice thing about these Acme bolts, the threads are so coarse. Acme threaded rods, they're so coarse. Like a half turn travels a lot on the bar. I just went to, up here in Canada, I went to boltsplus.ca, not getting paid or endorsed. And you still see how much it's under tension still. That second nut on top here, to me, just more of a safety in case this first nut, for whatever reason, decides to strip or something, that I got something maybe to catch it. I'm just wondering if I should have made this bolt longer. Starting to run out of space now. Starting to run out of thread. It's not really in. Oh, she's not under tension anymore. That's it. It's removed. This is what it looks like bolted onto the perch. Now I didn't tighten these things down. You can see they're a little bit of play. I just snugged them up. That's all. Right? I don't need to torque them down. These are grade 8 bolts, right? Again, I didn't do the greatest job on the tool, but that's it. Well, that's it. Now I got to just get in there, wire wheel like crazy. I do have some repairs to do to the shock tower. There's some cracks. I'm going to have to do some replacing over there. But it's just wire wheel like crazy. Oh, you can see I've done a lot of wire wheeling. So I'm not going to record any of that. Nobody wants to see people wire wheel, right? I know I don't. But I'll come back in. Like I got repairs up here to do. I got repairs over here to do big time. Some on the other side, but not as bad. So I'll cover some of the repairs. So that's it, everybody. Let me get my camera adjusted properly here. That's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it beneficial. Like I said, that tool that I created, I'm not endorsing you that you do that, okay? Just get the proper tool. That other tool is the proper tool, but I'm going to be honest with you, it just scares the crap out of me. I did spend time in front here, loosening stuff, but it's not 100% of the time I'm spending in front. If I had a blast shield in front of me, that'd be a different story. So I found that type of tool, and I know it's available in the States. Up here in Canada, it's not. That's why I figured I'd build that one. It cost me less than $100 or whatever it was. I had metal laying around, and my neighbor had some metal. I had to buy the threaded rod and some bolts, and that's about it, or nuts. So to me, that was a much safer approach. If I had recorded the first one I was taking off with that first tool, took me a lot longer. I was like basically soiling myself. That's it. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. Again, without subscribers, there's no content, right? I need to hit that 1,000 mark to get monetized by YouTube. I don't know if most of you know that. I need 1,000 subscribers and stuff. So, hey, whatever you can do to help out, I really appreciate it. Got a lot of really interesting stuff coming up. This is now the beginning of March 2024. And then I have the engine that we'll be putting back together, conversion to 4-speed. Some really cool stuff coming up, and the car shows are starting to happen again. So I'm hoping to be driving this thing by June, crossing fingers. Thanks again, and it's pretty hot in here. So see you in the next one. Bye now. Leave comments and questions below.